Welcome back. So today I'm joined with the lovely Lucy. She's come on today to tell her story. She has 2 daughters and she has gone through a whirlwind of a time. So I'm going to hand over to you now, Lucy. Could you just introduce us and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so hi, I'm Lucy and I run the page Parenting PANDAS. I originally had a page called Parenting PDA, and yeah, it's just been such a whirlwind since I've started raising awareness. And yeah, I don't really know where to start, to be honest. It's hard to know, but I suppose, do you want me to say right from the very beginning the whole story?
Yeah, so I'll just let you guys know as well. I was just on Instagram scrolling and I come across your story and I literally messaged you straight away as soon. I watched the whole thing, which was quite a lengthy video, and then I was like, I need her on the podcast to spread some awareness on this. So yeah, let's start from the very beginning.
Okay, so I've got 2 children, and my eldest is now 8. And she, from the very beginning as a baby, she was a very, very happy baby, met all the sort of norms and milestones that you'd normally expect, was talking really early, was walking really, really early, everything like that. And then she one day just stopped eating and drinking, and we didn't know what was happening. She was admitted to hospital for one night, and they put her on a drip and things like that. And at the time, we were just so scared. We didn't know what was happening, what was going on. And it turns out that we think she had strep at that time. Didn't really think anything else of it. She did start to sort of eat and drink a bit sort of after that. But slowly we started to notice her behaviour change. So we'd have, just horrific behaviour that we just wouldn't have normally had. Something sort of in her eyes changed, it almost felt like she just felt like a different child to who she'd been before. And gradually she just started to feel worse and the behaviour got worse. And I would take her to like a play date and she'd start like throwing stones at children and who sort of she'd class as her friends, and it was just all very strange. But I was heavily pregnant at the time, and I just put it down to the fact that maybe she's sort of worried about the baby coming and that type of stuff.
Because that's quite normal, isn't it?
Well, yeah, that's the thing, when you just expect that to be what's happening type of thing, like it's jealousy and that type of stuff. And then she was also starting nursery the January after that, so it's only like a month or 2 sort of after. So I thought, right, it's just all these emotions that are happening, that's what's causing it. And then family started noticing a difference. She was more hyperactive, and things just started to go really downhill from there. So she wasn't eating, wasn't sleeping. Things just got much, much worse. And then she started school and it got horrific. I think that's the only way I can describe it. She's really academically able, but she just wasn't doing any schoolwork. She just completely refused. She'd walk into school and we'd be chatting along on the way to school, and then a switch would sort of click when we got there, and she just sort of had a blank face, wouldn't interact with people and wouldn't speak to her friends. It was just really bizarre. And we had this for about a year, and then I saw something on Facebook that was about PDA, pathological demand avoidance. And I'm trained in autism as part of my old job, and autism never really linked up with her. They just didn't have the same characteristics as you expect of an autistic child. But when we found out about PDA, I just thought, wow, this is her. This explains everything. And quite quickly we got an appointment with a private assessor, and she was assessed and diagnosed with PDA. And we were like, right, we've got some answers now, we know what's happening, we can make some accommodations with the school, we can speak to them. And we started to make these accommodations, having like a low demand household and that type of stuff. And it didn't really help that much. She still had terrible behaviour, and she started to develop tics, like she started blinking quite quickly and just doing things like this type of stuff all the time, like, and couldn't help doing it. And then she sort of went into year 1. It was a bit better, but she still wasn't doing any work at all. And the school were putting accommodations in place. Like, we had a part-time timetable, so she was in like 3 half days a week. She'd be coming home exploding, having terrible behaviour, and would attack me, my husband, and her little sister. So it was just awful, and we didn't know what to do. And basically just carried on with this. We were trying to do low demand, it just wasn't really working. And then it got to the point where she became sort of obsessed with what she looked like. And I think it comes under sort of the OCD bracket, really. Like, she would have to have 2 bits of hair down the front of her face, and it would have to be exact. And if it wasn't exact, she would just kick the mirror, take her clothes off, and it would just be awful.
How old was she at this point?
This point, she is 6 or 7.
Yeah, so that's quite young to be obsessing about your image as well, isn't it? You see that more in like teenage years, I guess. But
exactly.
yes, that must have been worrying.
Really worrying. And I think for us at home, we are so body positive, and we're not obsessed with how we look. And I was just thinking, where is this coming from? I can't understand it. Then we had a horrific summer holidays before she started year 2, where she would just wear the same clothing, and it would just be, I had to get like the same jumper off Vinted, like 6 of them, because she would wear all through summer holidays with a jumper and leggings and wellies. Really difficult. And then it got to year 2, she did 2 half days. She got in the car and just said, I want to die, basically. I want you to kill me. And threw her drinks bottle at the windscreen and tried to open the door, and we were driving home. It's like a 2-minute journey.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, just horrific. And I just thought, I cannot send her back anymore. It's just causing so much. It's making her so sad, and it's just detrimental for her mental health. It's just awful. So I spoke to school and just said, look, she's not going to come back in for a while. She's going to have a mental health break. At this point, I was trying to juggle work, and I had my youngest as well. And it was just so difficult. It was really, really hard. And yes, then the school did an unplanned welfare check, which was really, really, really hard. And then after that, she didn't want to wear clothes, didn't want to dress at all, didn't want to go out, didn't want to eat, didn't want to wash, didn't want to brush her teeth, all of this stuff. Her tics got more intense, OCD got worse, and we stayed in for a whole year. She wouldn't let me go out. I would just about to go out with the dog. She'd allow me to go out with the dog because that was sort of like a non-negotiable. The dog had to have a walk. So it was just a horrific time. And I then created a page about PDA just to raise awareness of it, because I thought there'd be so many people living like we are and just wanted people not to feel alone. And then as I was sharing some of her sort of my daughter's OCD traits, a follower said, have you considered PANS and PANDAS? And I said, I have, which is, I'll explain what it is. It's a paediatric, I've written it down so I don't get it wrong, neuropsychiatric disorder associated with strep. So it's basically, so basically she spoke to me and said, have you looked into that? And I said, I have, but I've disregarded it because apparently the symptoms and the behaviours going to change overnight. And that didn't quite happen with us. We had it over a period of months, even a year, it felt like. So she said, just look back into it and see what you think. And I did. And I was just like, apart from the sort of fast onset of it, we had every other symptom. And with PANS and PANDAS, I know that autistic characteristics can sort of come into play, and it can cause the child to have these autistic characteristics. So I just looked into it, and within a week we had an appointment booked at the London clinic in the PANS and PANDAS clinic, in London. And I was about, honestly, 30% sure that she had PANS or PANDAS. I just thought, we're living in this horrific environment at home. Like, it was, I forgot to say, it's like in the summer holidays before sort of this whole situation, I was literally sitting outside my youngest daughter's bedroom door so that my eldest daughter didn't attack her. I did that for a year, basically.
Oh my gosh.
It was just awful. And you can't explain to people how horrific it is. And like, my daughter would get these terrible phobias. So she would have a phobia of spoons, out of all the things you can have a phobia to.
Yeah.
So we couldn't then use spoons. We literally, it sounds ridiculous, but if we had a spoon anywhere near her, like in the kitchen, even in the drawer, like hidden away, she would just trash the house because there was a spoon there. So we were just living in this just horrific environment.
And also for your other daughter as well, I bet she was scared being in that. And as a parent, obviously you love them both, so it's like you've almost got to split yourself to try and be there for both of them. But it's obviously going to have a knock-on effect on everything.
Yeah, and I mean, I had to leave my job, so my husband's then working 7 days a week to try and like get the income that I was getting, and it's just, so I was at home with them both, because my youngest then stopped wanting to go to nursery because my eldest was at home, so I had both of them for a year at home trying to attack each other. It was just awful. But so we had this appointment with the PANS clinic, and I didn't want to get my hopes up, but when we did the sort of forms online beforehand, I was like, oh wow, she has got a lot of these symptoms. This is amazing. And yeah, we got her to the appointment. I mean, she was wearing a really baggy old t-shirt, no shoes, just walked in the clinic as like that. And yeah, he sort of tried to assess her as much as possible, but she wouldn't let him do a sort of full assessment. But he noticed things like her pupils were massive and the way her skin looked, like a mottled type skin. And yeah, then we got her back in the car. I then carried on the chat with the doctor, and he said to me, after treatment, I'm pretty sure you'll have a sort of different child in 2 weeks, really. And I just burst into tears because I was just like, wow, like we've got actually some answers. She had her blood test done and everything as well, and then it did confirm that.
Oh, she let them do that?
Yes, which I cannot believe, honestly, because she hadn't been out of the house in a year. So
yeah,
bloods were at a different place as well. So we had to like drive round the corner for bloods, and she just did amazingly well. It's just incredible. And yeah, once we'd had the results with everything else involved and all the sort of other bits of paperwork we filled out, they said she had PANDAS. So we then had to start treatment.
Wow. So I think that's where I'd got up to when I first discovered you. You had just had the treatment and you have said like she is like a different child. So talk us through that, the actual treatment itself. What does that involve? Yeah,
so this is where it's so mad because PANDAS isn't recognised on the NHS. So you've got to do all this privately, which is really expensive and hard. And the thing that's the treatment is literally ibuprofen and antibiotics. It's nothing that's like, it's not some amazing, ridiculously expensive thing. It's like literally ibuprofen and antibiotics. And I'm not joking you. With the antibiotics, it was awful getting the first 2 doses in, like absolutely awful. Once they were in the 3rd dose, she just took it herself, and I could have fallen on the floor. Like it was incredible. And me and my husband would walk around the house and we'd go, we don't know what to do with ourselves because we weren't having to be referees for our children. We hadn't had an evening in over a year. We had to co-sleep with both of them. We would quickly eat our dinner, but it would be always interrupted like 20 times. And then we were finding ourselves watching like a series and eating our dinner, and it was just peaceful downstairs, and we were just like, this is so bizarre. And slowly the things started to disappear. So like her tics disappeared, the OCD disappeared, the dark thoughts stopped, because I don't want to go too much into the dark thoughts, but it was horrific, and she was starting to act on those dark thoughts, but none of that was there. And we were just like, this is almost magic. I just couldn't believe it. And I wouldn't have believed it if someone was telling me this, if you know what I mean. Like unless you were living it, we couldn't believe the difference.
It's almost like your child has gone back to how they were before turning 3, I guess.
Exactly.
Like you've got your child back. Yeah,
and you could see like she was singing, and like you could see like the glimmer in her eyes, and like before it was just like there was a demon in her. Like it was so bizarre. But yeah, we then got a glimmer of like who she used to be, and I was just it was such a roller coaster. Unfortunately, during the first sort of treatment, she because my youngest started school the same time we did treatment. We didn't plan that very well, but my youngest brought back so many different bugs. So my eldest then picked up every bug that she brought back, which causes another sort of flare, which inflames the brain even more. So yeah, I suppose I haven't really explained what PANDAS is. I'm just
I was just about to say. So it's starting through strep, doesn't it? I remember hearing, but tell us a little bit more about that.
Yes, you've got PANDAS, which is it's pediatric psychiatric disorders associated with strep. So it sounds really wordy, but it basically means my daughter had strep. Her body then created antibodies, and normally they would just fight the infection, and that would be the end of it. But this time, it then, because she's got an autoimmune disease, it then started fighting her brain. And it did so then for 5 years, which made it more and more inflamed, which then pushed on parts of the brain it shouldn't. So that then caused OCD, tics, dark thoughts. It also potentially caused her to have autistic characteristics. We still don't know if she's autistic or not. We're just sort of going with the flow of it because I think the autism that she was diagnosed with is PDA. She had such a fight and flight response to anything, and we find that when she's not in a flare, we aren't seeing that demand avoidance at all. So yeah, we're just trying to work it all out really. But yes, you've got the strep one, which is PANDAS, and then you've got PANS, which is pretty similar, but it can be from COVID, chickenpox, any sort of infection really. So it's just the PANDAS one is just the one associated with strep, which is what my daughter has.
And that is crazy that it's not recognised in the NHS. Like, why do you think that is?
I think it's because it's so new. I think it's so it's such in its infancy, to be honest. And I think there's so many people now doing things behind the scenes, trying to get it out there, and get it on those guidelines and get the awareness out there to GPs. Because I think there was a survey done, and GPs were sort of surveyed, and I think it was only 10% of GPs actually had even just heard of it. So that's the thing. It's like it's such a easy way to treat, but it's just the knowledge isn't there. So it's so hard and so frustrating because there's so many people and children that are affected by this. And I think there was a study done in America, and they said it's 1 in 200 children, which is just it's incredible.
And they're probably being diagnosed with autism and other things along, instead of actually getting the correct diagnosis. And if they had the right medication, then they wouldn't maybe have those traits. So
exactly,
so they're obviously being wrongly.
Yeah, because you can be autistic and have PANS and PANDAS as well. They can coincide. But I think in our case, it's just we just don't see those autistic characteristics when she's not in a flare. So before she's 3, I don't remember her having those autistic characteristics. So it is difficult, and I think people get quite offended by it because they don't want. I had some trolls on my page and things saying I'm trying to cure autism and that type of stuff, and I think a lot of people knew that wasn't the case at all. I just was trying to treat my daughter for a medical condition. It's really touch you down, I suppose, there. But I think for us, we were in such desperate need for our lives to change. We were just living in hell that we just had to try everything. We couldn't leave a stone unturned, really. It was just so tricky.
Yeah, touching on that, actually, your relationship must have gone through like a horrific time, but the fact that you've worked together as a team, that says a lot, because this could have easily made you go the other way and go against each other. How was your relationship during that time?
Oh, awful. You can't speak. You literally cannot speak. And he would come home from work and just be exhausted. He does a really manual job, and we just couldn't talk because us speaking would be a trigger for our daughter. So we had to text, we had to WhatsApp. He was co-sleeping with my eldest, I was co-sleeping with my youngest, so we literally just wouldn't see each other. And it really did took us to the test. Like, it was really, really difficult. But I think if we'd sort of carried on not knowing about PANDAS, I think it could have easily broken us, because the way we were living was just absolutely ridiculous. And my daughter found my husband quite a trigger a lot of the time. I mean, she found me a trigger as well, but I think when I'd been at home with them both all day and then my husband came in, it was a new sort of dynamic. So she just got annoyed with him just because she felt like it, basically. So, and that's the other thing as well. It's hard to think that she couldn't help a lot of those behaviours, but at the time it seems so manipulated and so targeted at you, and she'd pick at things that she knew would push your buttons, but this whole time she just hasn't been able to help any of that. And I think the thing for us is when low demand stopped working. I think low demand parenting worked for a little while, and then we were doing everything we could. We weren't sort of putting a demand on her to go to school, to go anywhere, to get dressed or anything. And then, the behaviour was still horrific, and the OCD was so bad. And and we'd gone down every avenue with CAMS and all the different services we can think of. But because it's not recognised and there's not that multidisciplinary approach, we just kept coming to dead ends, basically. CAMS offered me a parenting course that I even used to teach in children's centres, and it's just not going to work. It was just so difficult.
Yeah, no, there definitely needs to be more information out there. So I'm so glad we're getting this podcast out there for everybody. And your page is a really good resource. So if anyone is going through any of these characteristics with their children, definitely check that out. It's parenting_pandas. So how long ago did she start the treatment?
So it was back in the summer. It would have been August. So during the first literally month of treatment, we had 4 flare-ups, and I cannot believe this. We think she was exposed to strep within that 4 weeks as well, again. So we then had to start all the treatment again. which was difficult. But this time we went through our GP and managed to get a different flavour of antibiotics. And I wouldn't recommend doing this, but I ended up putting it in smoothies just because I wanted her to try and have some of it. And then eventually I could then give her the proper dose, because I think she sort of got the taste of it, and a bit of the antibiotics sort of calmed her down. And yeah, we did it. But it's just amazing the difference the antibiotics makes. And I mean, we've come to the end of that treatment, and we have noticed a dip again. So it's sort of just trying to navigate what happens next, I suppose. And because she wasn't assessed properly at the PANDAS clinic, she needed a neurological examination just to check there wasn't anything else going on, that it definitely was just PANDAS. But we did manage to get that at our GP surgery. But yeah, I don't really know what happens next. We are hoping to potentially get steroids for her, because we know that reduces the brain inflammation another 10 to 20%, I think. But I think really we need to go back to the specialist, Dr. Tim at the Children's E Hospital, and get his opinion again, and try and get her examined. But it's just so hard to get her there, because even when she's not in a flare, she's just not keen on going to London and all of that. So yeah, it's really difficult.
Yeah, well, that's quite overwhelming anyway, going into London where it's so busy. So especially if she's obviously feeling in this way. In respects to the actual treatment, so obviously with antibiotics, you can't just continue taking that, but could she not just have like a daily dose of something, or is that not how it works? Do you have a set period that you're meant to take it for?
Yeah, so you have a set period to begin with. But I have actually, this is the brilliant thing about my page, I suppose, is that I've now connected with people who are further along in the journey than us. And some people I know have been prescribed like a low dose daily to cover them for the winter. So we are now looking into that just to see if that's an option. But obviously, because I'm not a medical professional, it's so hard to, I don't want to suggest things because I don't know anything about it. They're the sort of experts. But yeah, it's difficult, because I suppose I worry the long-term effects of being on antibiotics. But then I have spoken to lots of families who are just on it long-term to sort of really try and reduce that inflammation. So yeah, it's really hard.
And have you connected with people with teenagers down the line, and how was their experience with it as they hit the hormonal changes as well as PANDAS?
Yeah, it's really difficult, because I suppose that's one of my questions I really want to know, because when you read online it says you can potentially grow out of it, but I haven't really met that many people that have properly grown out of it yet. I have spoken to somebody who was diagnosed when they were 13, and they're now like 23. But they've now developed things, potentially, I don't know if it's been because they weren't diagnosed for so long, but they've now got like epilepsy and different medical problems. So yeah, I don't really know. I have spoken to some people and they say it does get better, but they are still having flare-ups. But I think because of the age the children are, they can recognise when a flare is coming, so sort of think, right, I need to take my medication and that type of stuff. So I think, yeah, I'm still trying to get to the bottom of what happens with the teenage years.
Yeah. And how are your children now? They get on better?
Oh my goodness, within the first few doses of antibiotics, bearing in mind my eldest would try and tap my youngest at least 20 times a day. We had a period of about 6 weeks where there was nothing, not one hair pull, not one punch or anything. And it's just, I mean, that's the biggest thing for me, because I really worried about my youngest, because she's only just turned 5. So she was little when all this was going on, and it's hard to explain what's happening and everything. But yeah, she's just been incredible. She makes my eldest laugh all the time now, and it's wonderful to hear them together. Like I just absolutely love it. And I mean, they'll have the normal like sister sort of bicker type thing. But yeah, it's nowhere near like it was before. So yeah, it's wonderful that, yeah.
That is really good. Do you think it's had a knock-on effect on her, or does she seem quite strong with it all?
She is strong with it all, but I feel like it would be a lot for anybody to take. So I do feel like I would love to get her into sort of a talking therapy type thing, just to discuss with somebody that doesn't know the situation, just to let it all out and really chat about it. And her school have been fantastic, and they've been sort of drawing with her and doing things through that, like that type of therapy. But yeah, it definitely has made an impact. It really has. And I think it would on any child, but it's just about making sure now we're sort of at this point where I've got more time to sort of be with both of them. I'm really trying to give that one-to-one time. My mum has my eldest, and I try and do things with my little one. So it really worries me, the impact, if I'm completely honest. Yeah, but
Yeah.
hopefully we can get some therapy in there.
As a mum, I can't imagine that mum guilt. As I said it before, you've got to almost split yourself down the middle when this is going on, and you can't really do right for doing wrong in that situation. So I can't imagine the toll it's taken on you as well. So yeah, I just want to say I'm honestly so proud of the person that you are right now, because of everything you're putting out there to raise awareness while you had all of this going on in the background is just incredible.
Oh, thank you. It's been therapy for me, if I'm completely honest. Like, I started this when we were in the dark depths of like burnout, I suppose. But to connect with so many people who just completely understand, because my friends are incredible. They really, really are. They're so good. They check in all the time. They're amazing. But I think unless you're living this, you can't quite understand what it's like. So yeah, really it's helped me, to be honest. It really has.
Yeah. I bet. And has the support from the school got better now she's actually got a diagnosis, or is she still being homeschooled?
Yeah, so she's not at school at all. She's not going to go back to that school. So yeah, she's had a whole year off. But the problem is, because when she was at school, she didn't do any work at all. She's almost 3 years behind, 3 years behind in her work. So I'm really, I don't know what to do next. Like, I've been fighting for 2 years to get her an EHCP, which we've got. But now I'm like, what does education look like for her? It's really difficult. And I think she's craving friendships and being around other children. But I think it would harm her self-confidence so much if she was to go back into a setting and know she was so behind. So I'm trying to keep her up like as much as I can. And we've got educators that come in, but that's more like just doing sort of play stuff. So yeah, it's a really tricky ground.
And then socially, is she like okay with other children now? Because I know she wasn't wanting to leave the house. Are you able to go on like days out, or how does that look?
Yeah, so I completely take her lead. So we did have about a month, I think it was, back in like April or May, where she wanted to go out, but I way overdid it. I was like, whoa, let's go to soft play, let's do this, let's do that. And she was like, yeah, okay, but she wasn't telling me she wanted to do it. She wasn't the one that initiated it. So now I'm like really having to like go, okay, she's going out, but do not push it. Yeah, she'll just randomly say, she'll go, can I have a play date with so-and-so? And I just have to go, yep. And I just text the parent, and they're so good. Like, all my friends are so brilliant. And that'll either be at our house. She's done like a 2K park run the past 3 Sundays. So
wow.
with her friends from school, her old school. So like from being the house completely to now doing like 2K runs and yeah, seeing friendships. It's just amazing. But yeah, I completely take her lead. So I don't really ever suggest anything. I might drip feed it a tiny bit if I actually need to go somewhere like a shop or something. But yeah, most of the time she just says, can I do this? And she'll want to do it sort of straight away. So I sort of have to just try my best to do it. But
yeah, get everyone else to drop everything.
Exactly.
Yeah. And have you and your husband managed to have like date nights, or is she still very much wanting you both there?
No, so we haven't actually. We probably have got time now, but I think this is also like we just enjoy now watching just literally a film, like eating our dinner. We're like, oh my god, this is amazing. So we are going to try a bar weekend or something over Christmas because it's our like wedding anniversary over Christmas. But even that, like knowing that my parents can have both the children together, whereas they couldn't before at all. There's no way they could have had them both here. So know that we can actually like relax and know they're okay is amazing. Yeah, it's so good.
So what is the next step then? I know you were saying that you're going to be going back to the specialist.
Yeah, I think we're just going to have to play it by ear. I think I really would like to get her back there. I think getting our GP on board was a massive achievement, and I think he was really open to it, which is amazing. And I went with my mum, who's just been my absolute rock throughout all this. And she sort of had this paperwork to give him and training that he can do on it and everything. So yeah, I suppose the next steps are trying to raise awareness of this, getting out there as much as possible. I'm even going to write to our MP and just try and get that awareness up. And yeah, for my daughter, I think it's just going with the flow. We know this is going to be the hardest winter because it's just that's what Dr. Tim was saying at the PANDAS clinic. Like it's going to be the hardest winter. I'm desperate for summer to happen so that we can just get rid of all these bugs and hopefully just have a lovely summer. But yeah, just go with the flow, and just if we can get to the London clinic again, that would be amazing. But I'm just not sure yet how we'll get on because it is still very up and down with flares. So yeah.
And is she excited for Christmas coming?
Yes, it's up and down, up and down. I've done a tree pea this year, so it's slightly, normally, like last year, she wanted to rip the tree down. She just hated it. But I think the tree peas like created this sort of novelty thing. So I think, yeah, she's happy about it so far. So yeah.
So what advice would you give other parents?
I think always stay curious. I think that's don't say my motto, that sounds really cringy, but I just feel like I knew it wasn't quite just PDA for my daughter. And we still don't know if that's the case even. But I think just staying open to everything. And with me raising awareness of PANDAS, I think it's just thinking about, have you seen a change in behaviour? Have they always been like this? And for us, obviously, we definitely saw a change and we put it down to other things. But yeah, just really noticing, if you really notice the difference, to look into PANDAS and PANDAS.
As I say, I'd never heard of it until I come across your page, and what you're doing on there is amazing because you've got a massive community now growing. I saw Stacey Solomon commented on your video, didn't she? So you're getting out there to everybody. Make sure you're following Lucy on Instagram. Her handle is @parenting_pandas. Is there any other resources that you've got there, Lucy? I know you've put on there about a 15-minute call. Is it that for people going through it?
Yeah, so it's basically anyone that's sort of got any questions, because I know with us, I would have loved to have spoken to someone that had sort of lived through this, like the PDA bit and the PANDAS bit and going to the assessment and that sort of stuff. Like, I'm just on hand to answer any questions, I suppose, and give my sort of lived experience. I can't obviously give advice on there, but yeah, just connecting with people, even if you just sort of want to chat and not feel as alone, because I just felt so alone before I started all this. And then I realised there's just this massive community out there that like are living in the same circumstances. But yeah, the main ones I suppose are free 15-minute chats, the e-hospital, which is the PANDAS and PANDAS clinic, and then you've got PANDAS and PANDAS UK website, which is brilliant and has some really good resources on there, like GP and paediatric handouts you can give, and their FAQs are brilliant as well. That's what sort of pointed me into the direction of PANDAS and PANDAS.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. Honestly, this has been amazing, and I hope that this does raise more awareness for everybody out there. Guys, make sure that you're following us on Instagram, TikTok, and on YouTube @Mummahood The Podcast, and we will see you same time next week. Love you. Bye.